Hi, this is Roger in Finland, and in today's episode of Oh no, you made another video playing around in ACES in Resolve, we're gonna be trying to match 4 cameras using ACES: Zcam S6, Zcam E2c, Sony ZV-1, and the Sony a6400. Let's get into it. And for the impatient ones, I'm shooting at Zlog2 Zcam 3, so PP9 for the Sony ZV-1, same thing for the Sony a6400, and then for both Zcams I'm shooting in Zlog2, H265 for the E2c, ProRes 422 for the 6. I'm recording into the internal cards for both of them. So let me show you for a moment this contraption that I have here. I'm shooting this with the Olympus M1 Mark II, which is not supported by ACES, even though we might try to figure that out later, but that's time for another video. Anyway, here we have the Zcam S6, the E2c, the ZV-1, and the a6400. On the Zcam S6, I have the Make 25mm J2.2. I have the Laowa 17mm 1.8 into the E2c. Then the ZV-1 is set at somewhere around 35-ish millimeters-ish. And then I have the Sigma 30mm f1.4 in the a6400. So that's my setup, and that's what we're testing today. All of the cameras are set at 4K non-DCI, because the two Sonys do not have the DCI aspect ratio. Everything is at 25p. The apertures and the lenses are different in each camera, and so are the ISOs. So the different log formats in the different cameras have different base ISOs. So I'm just trying to do the best to have a decent exposure so that we can color grade properly afterwards in post. Or that's the idea. And for the impatient ones, what I want to do is to see if with a really fast workflow using ACES, we can get the 4 cameras looking similarly enough. So we're going to have an ACES transform node in the very first one, going from either Zlog2 Zcam 3 or Zlog2, depending on the camera, into aestheticity. Then I'm going to have 3 nodes, one for exposure, which I hopefully will touch only the offset, at least that's what I'll do with the S6, which will be my base image. In the next node, I'm going to do some touches with the color saturation, so basically increase a bit the saturation and a little bit the color boost as usually. And then I'm going to have a third node in case I need to use the color warper to adjust the colors a bit more precisely. I know I had to do that with the ZV-1, no need to do that with the S6 or the E2c, but let's see what we need to do to get the cameras matching as much as possible. And then the very last node would be an ACES transform going out from aestheticity into Rec 709. So here are the results of everything I've done already, matched as good as I could with not too much effort, so that's the point of the video. And this is a shot of my face with those gradings with the 4 images next to each other. And now these are different separate shots with a color chart in front of each of the cameras, but trying to show pretty much the same thing. This is the color accuracy that we got. Now let me superimpose on it the vector scopes of each one of them, so you can see how accurate and how similar the colors are based on the X-Rite color checker. But before hopping into DaVinci Resolve, a couple of more details. The first one, once again, I'm doing it a lot, but he deserves the credit. Thank you to Thatcher Freeman for providing the Zlog2 to ACES AP0 input transform, and then for helping me to get it this set up, and also basically for introducing me to the workflow with ACES. And then why to do this video at all? Some people might be trying to match Zcam cameras with some of Sony cameras. I can see people having either the S6 or even the F6 and having as a second camera the A7 IV or the A7S III and wondering how to match those. I know that these are different sensors. This is the S6, that's the a6400. The ZV-1 is here so I can test it out as well. But anyway, they are similar color profiles, similar log formats, and let's take a look if this workflow makes it easy for me, which might make it actually even easier for people that know what they're doing. And one of the points of ACES anyway on the color grading space, I'm not talking now about VFX or other things, is this matching of cameras. So you bring all your different cameras into the same color space, then work exactly in the same way for all of them so that you get as close image as possible. And as usually, The main disclaimer I have in all these videos is that I'm just a hobbyist, but I like learning things and then share what I've learned in case it's useful to somebody. So now let's hop into Resolve and let's see what we can do. All right, now we are in DaVinci Resolve 17.4.2, and I am using at the moment for color management DaVinci YRGB Color Managed. And here what I have is these 8 clips, 4 of them the talking head, 4 of them the X-Rite color checker, and here we have the E2-S6, the Zcam E2c, a6400, the ZV-1, and here the same thing. A6, E2c, a6400, and ZV-1. As I said before, the ones from the Zcams are shot in Zlog2, and the ones from a6400 and ZV-1, so the Sony cameras, are shot using Zlog2 and Zcam3. So let's get started. In the first node we will have an ACES transform. On the second one, and let me label it, we're going to be touching the exposure. On the third node, we're going to be basically touching just saturation and color boost, but both things do similar stuff. We're going to have a third node just in case, or the fourth one here with a color warper, and then finally we do go out with another ACES transform. So now what I'm going to do actually is save this as still and apply this to all of them. So now we will have basically the same node structure to all of this. So let's go ahead and start with the Zcam E2-S6, which, let's be honest, is the best looking camera from these 4 and the one that we will want to be matching to. I don't want to do anything fancy like with my other ACES videos, just to get to a place that I'm happy enough. Let me hide the gallery, let me hide the clips so you can see more this image, but let's go ahead. So we're going in the ACES transfer from the Zlog to ACES CCT. We are going out from ACES CCT to Rec 709. And here, let me put the waveform and put the exposure to a place where I'm happy with. And this is a place where I'm happy with, that's it. For the saturation, I'm gonna add a bit of this and a bit of that, and I'm happy. I'm not gonna do absolutely anything else. We will take a look at the color warper when we check the X-Rite. So now let's do something similar for the E2c, and let's see where we go, and let's see how far we are just by doing these small things. So ACES transform from, again, Zlog2 to ACES CCT, and out from ACES CCT to Rec 709. Let's adjust the exposure to a place that I'm happy. I overexpose the E2c more than the S6, I'm noticing. I am happy here. And let's adjust a bit the saturation and color boost to give a bit more life to the face. So here it is. Here was the other one, just side by side. Well, the framing is different and the compression is different because they're different lenses, but we'll have to really take a deep look, but quickly, I'm okay with this. Now let's get things more complicated. This is the a6400, so now we need to go from Zlog2, Zcam and Sony, which was the PP9 profile we chose here, to ACES CCT, and out from ACES CCT to Rec 709. And one would hope that now, but by adjusting the exposure and leaving the skin tones in a similar place, it would be enough, and that is the hope. So let's see how close will this be actually. Oops, 5. This looks good, but somehow not as pleasant as this. We'll have to really take a look. This is different. this is different, so this image is clearly cooler. So maybe that's why the skin tones are leaning more towards the yellow, but we'll take a look at that more precisely when we adjust the color checkers, and then let's see if we can match this one. And for the ZV-1, I'll be wild and just copy the grade from one prior. Obviously the exposure was very different in the two cameras, so this one would go somewhere here, right? That's where we're keeping the skin tones, and this is where we are. Now, we saw that we didn't have to do much in general to be super happy. We saw that we didn't have to do much in general on the S6 and the E2c footage, both of them actually, to look great. I'm not so happy about the Sony looks with that minimum adjustments. So let's see what's happening if we take a look at this. Now we're going from Zlog2 to ACES CCT. I'm not sure if I want to repeat this again, but that's what we're doing again. I just want to check how things look like from a color accuracy perspective. So I don't know how much do I really want to mess with the exposure. Let me still adjust the saturation and the color boost a bit. And let's see where we are. So this is fairly, if not very accurate. The blue one, it's less somehow, so we might want to adjust it with the warper. One thing that I'll do here is at a very first note, adjusting the white balance. All of them were set manually. I'm using the gray card from this color checker as well, but let's see how far actually we are. This leans a little bit towards the red. I think that's something that is not surprising, or I've seen it before. But now this is properly white balanced. Again, all of the colors are going where they are supposed to, except the blue, which is a little bit different. So what I'm gonna do is use the color warper for that purpose and adjust it a bit more precisely. So let's see if the blue gets more towards the blue without having to touch where the cyan was. And that's about it. This should be a very accurate thing. Now what I'm gonna do is with the E2c clip, I'll just copy the grade from the S6 one. It's the same color profile, different sensor, same camera manufacturer. So let's see how that works. The exposure was very different, so let me adjust that one. But here we can see that both cameras with the same color profile, that definitely work very, very similarly. The thing that I'm going to do now is actually copy the color warper from here and apply it to both the E2c footage and the S6 footage. And also I'll do the same with the white balance. So let's add a note. And let's get that fixed. And let's add a note. And let's get that fixed. And by fixed, I mean accurate. I'm not saying that this is a better look than a moment ago. I prefer the warmer look than this one, but this is more accurate. Now what we do have for sure is the skin tones where they are supposed to be, and the skin tones where they are supposed to be, and a color accurate image. Now it's when after doing this, I would start adding notes after this one to do a creative grading if we would want to. But now let's try to do the same with the Zlog2 and Slog3 from the Sony a6400, and then we'll try to copy that to the ZV-1 and let's see what happens from there. So here we're going once again Zlog2 to ACES CCT, and the same when going out to Rec 709. Then I've been always adding a little bit of saturation and color boost to liven things up a bit. I said a bit. I apologize about that. There we go. And now let's touch this. Let's see where we are. All right, this starts to look like an image that you can look at. And actually this is pretty color accurate. Take a look. Everything is where it's supposed to include the skin tones. I will not do anything with the color warper here, but I will touch the white balance, which was fairly close, but let's still adjust it. Let's copy the grade from one prior here, and let's see how far we are. And we are not far. The colors are where they are supposed to be, and I'm happy about that. What I'll do now is copy the white balance to both cameras here. And now this one. And now all of them should have similar colors. And all of them do look different, significantly so. All right, and here we are back. I went really down a rabbit hole before, trying to do a bit too many things, so probably I did cut it short. But after the initial color correction and some adjustments to be happy enough with the image that I got from each one of the cameras, now what I did is basically put side by side the E2-S6, which is the reference for me, the one that looks the best, with the E2c, a6400, and the ZV-1. And what I'll be doing is let's take a look at the two images and let's see how far they are in terms of both color, exposure, contrast, etc. And let's see if we can get them close without spending too much time, which I'm not sure if it's possible, but let's take a look. So what I'll be now touching is obviously the E2c. I will be doing nothing anymore to the S6 since I have decided that I'm happy with that image. So first I'll take a look at the exposure and let's see if we can figure out, taking a look at the waveform, how much different they are. These two are not really different. The biggest difference is actually the shadows that I have on my face, and it's mostly because the cameras, well, were not totally aligned, as you have seen on my crazy setup. So there's not that much anything to do here. And let's take a look at the waveform like this, which is a bit easier for me, and we can see that pretty much everything is where it's supposed to. So in terms of exposure and contrast, we're almost at the same place. I think that the E2c darks look darker than the ES6, so I will tone down a little bit the contrast here, just a tiny bit. This looks a bit closer, and let's see if do I need to increase a little bit the offset, not too much. I believe that now these two look much closer. The other thing that I want to do is take a look at the color and color. I'm not sure if it's accuracy or similarity, but anyway, looking at the vertoscope is not helping me that much because both of them look good enough, but I can see differences in the background. So what I'll do is that actually another note after the saturation where I'll do my color corrections. Let's put it there, and let's see if what do we need to adjust. I think that this one has a bit too much of green, so let's see if by taking the green down a bit we get things closer. Maybe not this much. And I think that now these two images look more similar to me. Let's take a look. Before and after. I'm silent because I'm just staring at myself. This feels silly. But I do think that we have matched these two cameras well enough. The amount of detail on the skin, and it's not sharpened, it's not nasty sharpening, its actual detail is so much nicer in the E2-6. But that shouldn't be a surprise. If it wouldn't, then yeah, that would be a problem. There we go. I therefore consider the E2c matched to the E6. Now let's get for more difficult things. A6400. So let's take a look at full screen. Here there is more contrast, obviously, in the A6400. The shininess of the forehead, and these two actually were aligned one on top of each other, so you can see that the shape of the shadow is the same one, and yet the illumination on the face is very, very different. So let's see if we want to touch the curves. I'm gonna add another node here for that purpose. Maybe let me hide this since we're not using it anymore. And let's take a look at what can be done here to have this a bit differently. So one thing we can try to do is either try to attack straight the contrast, or let's see if the curves can be helpful here. Let's check at full screen before and after. I think that now the roll-off of the skin is similar to this one. This actually worked pretty nicely, so these are okay. Now if we take a look at the color of the wall, which is the thing that we can easily attack, let's do so. And to me, again, this one, the S6 looks like it has a bit more green in it, and this might have a little bit more magenta. So now let me take a look at whether we try to subtract a bit of red, not magenta, sorry. Is that too much? There we go. That was very little, but it makes, I think, a substantial difference. Now I think that this looks a lot closer. Now I think the exposure matches fairly well. The background color matches fairly well. The skin in the S6, I think it looks so much better. There is some extra red here and in the forehead, and then my under eyes look a little bit yellow. Sure, I could sleep more and better, but still it looks more okay in the S6. But I'm not sure how to tackle this problem without going into lots of detail and start masking things, and I don't want to do that. I think this is close enough, at least for my purposes. With these two looks, I think I could be using these two cameras in an AV situation comfortably enough. Now that we're happy now with the a6400, let's go for the tough one, the Sony ZV-1. I'll try quickly, and if in the next 5 minutes I do not succeed, we're gonna call it a day and we're gonna call it a failure, and I'm okay with that. Looking at these two images, exposure wise it's okay. I'm gonna take down a notch the contrast. I would be happy enough with that. What I'm not happy is with the colors. The background looks similar enough possibly, but my face looks yellow, like I have a liver condition, which obviously I don't have if I'm being filmed by the S6. So let's try to see if getting a little bit less green here would help. And I think it did. Take a look. The yellower, greener me, the healthier me. Let's take out a little bit of red because now it crept into the background, but not too much, otherwise we might lose it from the skin. This is the green me, this is the healthier me. We could probably be starting to make masks and qualifier selections and whatnot, but I don't want to do that. I just wanted to see if can I get them matched somewhat quickly. And I'm gonna say that no, we didn't. Let's take a look at the three different cameras. Here we have the E2c with the S6. I think that yes, they do match. Yes, they look great. Yes, the S6 is awesome. Let's take a look at the a6400. That's pretty decent. They look pretty good. They look fairly close. The S6 looks better in my mind and in my eyes and in my screen, but that's still fairly impressed with what the a6400 could do. And remember that it is 8-bit H.264 Zlog2 Zcam 3 in an APS-C camera. So similar sensor sizes, but totally different beasts. And finally, the ZV-1, that was a stretch. And as I said, if I don't put the ASICs next to it, I believe I can get decent results, as I showed in the video about ACES and the ZV-1. But man, when you put the ASICs next to it, yeah, that's why one is a compact camera and the other one isn't. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the journey. For me, it was tougher than usually, because when you're comparing whatever to a camera like the Zcam S6, it's not just a problem of matching, but a realization of how good that camera is. But this was fun and interesting to do. I know that I can use the E2c without any problems. I know that I could use the a6400 for big cam needs if I need to. I know that the ZV-1 is to be used on its own, and that's fine because it has its own purpose, at least in my case, so that's totally okay. But that's about it for today. Let's go back to the non-conclusive closing of the video, and we'll see you soon back diving into DaVinci Resolve. So, because this introduction was recorded before I hopped into Resolve, I'm actually not sure how well I succeeded, but let me know down below what's your opinion on the topic. And I hope you liked this video, you find it useful, and if you did, please like and subscribe. I'm gonna see you soon for some more.